Hi guys, I welcome you guys all back to my channel, and today I am back with my March reads. And I read a lot of books this month. I read a lot of thick books this month, but there was also one book that I DNF'd, and I kind of want to just get that book out of the way, so let's just get started. So the first book that I want to talk about, I got it from the library. Kind of glad I didn't buy it. It is Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. Now, I listened to her, I'll try to link it if I remember it. New York Public Library has a podcast where they interview authors and things like that, and she was actually on there, and like listening to her talk and everything, I was totally down for this book. It's supposed to be weird, but it was so weird. Let me just read you the description. It says, written with stylistic brilliance and based in the author's realities, this raw and extraordinary debut explores the metaphysics of identity and being, plugging the reader into the mysteries of self. Unsettling, heart-wrenching, dark, powerful. These are the perfect descriptions of this book. Like, the book is actually centered around a girl named Ada, and essentially they say that she is born with 1 foot, she's born with 1 foot on the other side, and because of that, she has these 2 spirits who are represented as snakes that they live inside her, and after a traumatic event, instead of letting her be the human that she is and them just like living in her, they start taking over. So like it kind of felt as if she had like a mental disability, or almost like schizophrenia rather, but it wasn't, because the story is also told from the standpoint of the 2 beings, for lack of a better word, inside her. So it's almost like you see Ada, but like you don't feel for Ada like you're supposed to, because they're also so detached. Like, this kind of book is, I'm not saying that this book is bad. I just say that it's not really my thing. I think I got to chapter 8 or something. And I swear, I was listening to it via audiobooks because it's also available on Hoopla for anybody who wants to know. But every time I was like, what? Wait, what? And I had to keep re-listening the parts. And then that was when I went to the library to get it, because then I started like reading it and I was still confused and I just could not get into the story. Like, this was a hard read for me anyway, so I decided to just like stop trying. The first book that I enjoyed last month was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And do you guys remember this from my haul and my previous TBR, obviously? Well, I'm so glad that I finally sat down to read this big old hunk thing. It is 570 pages. This is also available on Hoopla for anybody who is wondering. And I personally really enjoyed this historical fiction. It is a World War II storytelling based on 2 French sisters. One of them is Vienne. She is a wife, she is a mother, and she is a friend. And the story takes place with her husband going off to war. But when Germany invades France, he ends up becoming a prisoner of war. Not only that, but she ends up having to house one of the German soldiers. So you see that whole dynamic unfold, and it just literally leads into so many tears. Like, I cried so many times reading this book, and it always involves children. I'm not going to spoil it, of course, but I will say on the flip side of that, it involves her sister, Isabel, who has been rebellious her entire life, and ironically, she ends up joining the French Revolution, and this woman goes out to do also, they both end up doing extraordinary things. And the story is told in 2 times. So in present time, you have the story of this older woman, and she has cancer, and her son is trying to take care of her. But you don't know who she is in the beginning, but it flashes back to her life when she lived in France, and that's when the story of Vienne and Isabel are told. But like, you don't realize who she is until way into the book. When I finally, like, I had an idea of who she was, but when it was like confirmed, I was like, because most of the book I read, but I listened to this audiobook wise. I think it's like 18 hours worth of audiobooks. So I did read this one. I loved it. Highly recommend it. Another book that I read based off a recommendation of someone else is Timekeeper by Tara Sim. And this is the thing. I liked the book. It is 414 pages. Out of the 414 pages, I think the actual plot that was described, that's even described on like the back of the book and everything, I think that actual plot is maybe about not even a full, I'm gonna say like, it's not half of this book. It actually focuses on a young boy whose father ends up trapped in a clock town because they are mechanics who keep the clocks running because the clocks are what keep people like running and things. So when the clocks malfunction, the town that the clock tower is in also malfunctions. However, what this little thing fails to mention is that like there are so many, like there are two major love stories in this, and both of them get on my nerves because also, and before anybody even thinks this, it's not because the main character is gay and has a relationship with another man. That part is not the part. I don't care if you're on man, woman, or whatever. I hate love stories, basically. But I really felt like this love story was a hot mess because it's with clock spirits. So they're not people. So in that sense, like they've completely given human things to clocks. So I was just really confused. But I am going to read the second one. It's already out. And I kind of want to see what they're going to do with it because the way that the book ends, it ends in a way that you don't necessarily need another one because everything kind of gave itself an ending. So I'm interested to see what they're going to open up for the second book. So last month I had to do a training. The training was absolutely terrible and I was so bored. And to keep myself awake, I was just scrolling on Hoopla, seeing what new books were available. And I came across The Bells by Danielle Clayton. And I know this has been all over BookTube and people have been getting them from subscription boxes and they've been getting sponsored videos and da-da-da-da, which is cool. But I had really no intentions of reading this book. Essentially, it's about a girl named Camille. She and her 5 sisters are what they call bells. Bells have been given the power from the goddess of beauty to beautify the world. And they're the only people that can do it. So it's like a big deal to be the queen's belle, essentially. So like the creme de la creme of bells would be the queen's favorite. And so Camille wants to be the favorite. And so obviously the way the story goes, she becomes the favorite, but it's so many like scandalous, like it's like a typical royalty scandal type thing, but on a whole other level about the obsession of humanity with beauty. I actually didn't think it was a bad book. I'm actually going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. And that's because I kind of found some of it a little predictable because I was reading it and I was like, wow, like they made sure to kind of reiterate, they did a very good job of really talking about the decadence and like the over exaggeration of beauty and elegance and extravagance. That part was cool. But Camille's character, like how naive she was, I didn't feel like there was any growth. So it kind of went from her being super, super naive to kind of naive. And then like, she's like, gung-ho at the end. So it's like, I kind of wanted more character development as far as that. I mean, the villains were also kind of typical. Like, I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah, I don't know. And then I kind of felt like one of the parts was like a Sailor Moon moment. And again, I'm not going to ruin it, but anybody who's read The Bells and knows Sailor Moon could kind of understand what I'm saying on that. But I did read it, so that's another book. Another audiobook that I actually just finished like 2 days ago is King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. Now, you guys know I have been like trying to root for this Red Queen series just because it has all the elements, in my opinion, that could make a good series. However, the first 2 books, I was like, yeah. The third book, I actually really liked it. And I know that's crazy because there's so many things that happen in the first and second books. But for some reason with this book, I felt like, I thought about it earlier. I told myself, I'm like, it's clear that The book was not told. The book was told by three different women, Mare, Cameron, and Evangeline, which I was very shocked to hear Evangeline's voice, because I read this via audiobook, but I don't know, the break from having to listen to Mare, plus Mare was on a different type of thing. Like, I felt like in book 1 and book 2, she was on a whole woe is me thing, but on book 3, because she was literally a captive of the king, she was like actually going through like what it's like to be super alone, suffering major PTSD, you know, all that stuff. And then I don't know, I kind of predicted, like I kind of knew what was going to happen at the end, because the title of the next book kind of implies that stuff is about to hit the fan. But I liked reading the book from other standpoints. I hope that Warstorm is not told through Mare only. Like, I would also like to hear it from Cal's perspective and then Farley's perspective. Those are the two perspectives that I would really like to hear it from. And I guess Mare. But I actually really like King's Cage. I felt like it was a good third book to a series. Now, I don't know how many books it is. I think it's 4. I don't know how many more books you could go past this, because now it's at that point where it's like do or die. So yeah, I do plan on reading that book when it comes out this year. I do not plan on buying the series. It was a good series to read, like from the library and audiobooks, but nothing more. Next book that I read is The Kata Witch by Nenende Okorafor. Now, I had this on ebook, and I actually read this in my Kindle app, but I ended up really, really liking this book to the point where I ordered it in hardcover. I got it from the library first to finish it off, and then I ordered the hardback version of this book and its sequel. So A Kata Witch is about this young girl. She is Nigerian American. She moved to Nigeria when she was 9 years old, and she is albino. And to explain mostly, like, albinoism is never looked at as a positive thing. A lot of people feel like there's a curse associated with it. Like, there are countries that massacre people that are albino. So that is how they kind of made her look. And she is introduced into the world of leopard people, which I'm going to compare to Harry Potter is being a wizard, essentially. So where Harry Potter calls them muggles, A Kata Witch calls them lambs, and they have their own special events and things, and like they have football where they have Quidditch, and like it's like legit the African Harry Potter that I didn't know that I needed. I love it. Like, I wish that she would write more, because I'm like, bruh, like I kind of want to know what goes on with her life. But essentially she is connected to 3 other kids, and they've been bound by a destiny to pretty much save the world, because how else are you going to have a African magical fantasy book without having to save the world, right? So I'm not even going to give you any more than that. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, it's only 369 pages, and it's a quick, smooth read. And of course, you can get it from your library. The next book and final book that I read is the book that I did my review on, and it is Children of Blood and Bones by Tomi Adeyemi. I am not going to go into a full spiel like I did. Click the link up above if you want to see. But this is my favorite book of last month. 5 out of 5 stars, hands down. I cannot wait for the next book. I'm going to read everything this woman puts out if it's anything remotely close to this. Freaking loved this book. This book is told from 3 standpoints: Zele, Amari, and Anan. Amari and Anan are brother and sister, also prince and princess. Amari steals a relic that is essentially going to give magic back to the world, and who else could save her but a little magi herself known as Zele. Now, the premise that you need to remember, the premise is very Avatar-esque, like I said in my review, but the king broke the connection between the gods and the Magi. Therefore, the Magi lost their powers. Once they lost their powers, he did mass murder, essentially, of all the adult Magi and left their children, who are called diviners, by themselves, without magic. And Amari learns that there's something that could possibly return magic back to these people, and she ends up running into Zele, and then the story just unfolds where they're just trying to bring magic back while also running away from her crazy brother, who is under the impression that Amari was kidnapped and that he has to save her and destroy magic. It is a great book. It is a smooth 525 pages. Didn't realize that. But this is one of those books where I could not stop reading it. Like, I would tell myself, okay, I'll read a chapter. And then I would get to the end of the chapter and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna read another chapter. And then it was some points where I had to put the book like out of my sight because I would literally be like doing something and I would kind of like look over to the side like, one more chapter. I could not put this book down. Highly recommend it. I've been talking about this book when I played my video games, like people on my comms, everything. Everybody knows about this book. I've been bragging about it all month. Highly recommended. Also, just kind of wanted to give you guys an update with the Soar book by T.D. Jakes. This book is hard for me to read, mainly because I don't really do well with self-help books from the beginning, but I kind of hate all the flying metaphors. So I'm in it. Like, I'm only on chapter 2 because I read like a section a day, and then when like there's like 8 metaphors in a paragraph about flying, and I'm just like, bro, I cannot. So eventually I'll finish this, but I just kind of wanted to update you guys. All right, guys. So that was my March reads. What books did you read for the month of March? What books are you hoping you get to read for the month of May? Or month of April. My TBR, of course, is coming up in the next video. So until the next time, guys. Bye.